The House comes to questions for oral answer. Question number 1 in the name of Metiria Turei.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Tēnā koutou i te whare. My question is to the Minister and asks, when he said in the Minister of Economic Development, when he said in relation to the SkyCity Convention Centre deal, quote, the negotiated significant additional harm minimisation measures that apply to all gambling machines in that casino will together act to reduce harm, end quote. Was he basing his claim on the Health Ministry's gambling harm minimisation team's advice? And if not, why not?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, my comment was based on information contained in the regulatory impact statement prepared by the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, following consultation with and summarising advice received from the following agencies: the Ministry of Justice, the Gambling Commission, the Ministry of Pacific Island Affairs, TPK, Treasury, the Ministry of Social Development, the Ministry of Women's Affairs, the Office of Ethnic Affairs, DIA, the New Zealand Police and the Ministry of Health.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Why did the Minister exclude from the regulatory impact statement the advice from the Ministry of Health that, quote, it was doubtful voluntary pre-commitment cards would reduce harm and that SkyCity was already using the technology, so it was not, in fact, either new or additional?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, I think the member misunderstands the role of the regulatory impact statement. The regulatory impact statement is prepared by officials, and it's a summary of all the different official advice that comes from different agencies.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Why then did the Minister sign off on the regulatory impact statement that excluded the advice from the Ministry of Health that doubling of host responsibility staff at the SkyCity Casino was likely to have, at best, a minimal effect?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, again, I think the member's misunderstanding the role of the regulatory impact report, which is to get together the information supplied by different departments. It may come as a surprise to the member that I haven't read the advice from every single one of those agencies. The regulatory impact statement, don't be a clown, Trevor, the regulatory impact statement is put together as a summary of the different agencies.
Order is disappointed.
No, supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Is it not his practice to read the advice from all officials on bills?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, it is not my practice to read advice to individual ministers from every single agency for a paper that I'm taking to Cabinet. I very much doubt that it is any minister's practice, and certainly not the practice of previous ministers of the previous government.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. So when the Minister told this House that the Cabinet had considered, quote, all of the risks and benefits of the social and economic impacts of this deal, was he mistaken or was he deliberately misleading the House?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr Speaker, neither. The Cabinet, as is always in these situations, receives a Cabinet paper and in appropriate cases, including this one, a regulatory impact assessment, which different agencies contribute to, which is summarised by the lead agency and then taken to Cabinet. And that's what occurred in this case, as occurs in a whole range of other cases. And it has to be said that the regulatory impact statements have been a heck of a lot better prepared under this government than under previous governments.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. What other advice did the Minister choose to leave out of the regulatory impact statement? And did part of it include the advice on the intended reduction in the TV New Zealand dividend as a result of the sale of land to SkyCity under the Convention Centre deal?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Again, for the member's benefit, if she'd listened to a previous answer, she would notice that the supposition contained in the first part of that supplementary is incorrect. In relation to the second part of the supplementary, she's also incorrect, because in actual fact, in terms of the forgiveness of dividends, which is flagged potentially some time ago, that's for the opportunity for TVNZ to renovate their building next door, which I think is a fantastic outcome. They've sold some land to SkyCity as part of the convention centre arrangements, and they're getting an opportunity to make a much needed renovation to their facilities.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Were the Cabinet and his caucus colleagues made aware of the likely significant extra costs of this need to induce TVNZ by way of a reduced dividend expectation to move out of part of its Auckland Central premises to make way for the Convention Centre deal before they voted for the bill?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr Speaker, I completely reject the assertion that the member makes. The reality is, I've made it quite clear, is that the Convention Centre could proceed with this extra piece of land or without, and that's quite obvious that it could do so. The TVNZ was given the opportunity to sell the land. They went to their shareholding ministers and said, well, look, we'd like to renovate our building. Would you support us in doing so? As has been said publicly for some time now, it was indicated that shareholding ministers would support that. And so out of this, we'll get a fantastic convention centre for New Zealand based in the middle of Auckland City, generating jobs, generating tourism opportunities. And also, TVNZ next door will get an update of their building, including earthquake strengthening and future-proofing. So it's all working out as a pretty big win-win.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Did the Minister advise Broadcasting Minister Craig Foss last year about the possibility of a reduced dividend from TVNZ due to the SkyCity deal, given that Mr Foss demanded at least a 9% from TVNZ in December in dividends?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, I think the matter was raised from TVNZ to their shareholding ministers a reasonably short time ago. There was a letter that went back, which I referred to publicly, I think from memory, a couple of months ago, and it was probably shortly before that. So I think relating it to last year is probably reasonably relevant.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Why did the regulatory impact statement cite the 2011 NZIER report and Table 1 as showing that the Convention Centre would employ 500 full-time equivalents, when in fact no such figures are in either the tables or the report from the NZIER 2011 report?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr Speaker, I'd have to go back and check the comments the member makes in relation to the regulatory impact statement, but it's important for her to realise that the figures referred to in the NZIER report are a different set of figures and don't bear any direct relationship to the figures around construction and operation of the Convention Centre. They're only an input into the NZIER report. NZIER report looks at wider economic analysis and doesn't refer to the number of jobs either in construction or, in fact, in operation of the centre.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. What discussion has he or his officials had with SkyCity about their participation or non-participation in the Select Committee process on the NZICC bill?
Honourable Stephen Joyce. I had one conversation, Mr Speaker, with the chair of SkyCity on a number of matters, including some not related to SkyCity, and he asked whether it was something that they should do, and I said to him that it was open to them to decide what to do, I didn't think it was particularly necessary, but from their decision it was very much their call as to make, and I think they made their own call.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can the Minister confirm that when his colleagues, such as Peseta Sam Lutuinga, voted in support of the SkyCity deal, they did so on the basis of incomplete and inaccurate financial analysis, inaccurate advice on the actual cost to the taxpayer from this deal, incorrect projections of job numbers, and a patently untrue account of the impact of harm-minimisation measures?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
No, Mr Speaker, the member is wrong on all three of those counts. This convention centre, which all of the National Party caucus campaigned on at the last election, and I appreciate that this is the second time in 2 days that the Green Party has advised us not to follow the policies on which we were elected. This particular convention centre will create 1,000 jobs in construction, will create 500 jobs in ongoing operation, will enhance the New Zealand convention industry. It's a good deal for New Zealand, and this government believes strongly in it.
Question number 2, the Honourable David Parker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. Does he stand by his statement that our company